Want your game reviewed or just want to talk about Overwatch or anything in general? Feel free to send me a message on Discord by joining my server. Link is in the description. So in this video, we're going to be going over the concepts of ability usage. Ability usage in Overwatch is extremely important. As some of you may know, a lot of the characters in this game, including Winston, which is the character we'll be looking at in this video, heavily work around their cooldowns. Because of this, knowing when to use your abilities is very important when it comes to wanting to be effective with your chosen character. Ultimately, using your abilities in the wrong fashion could lead to you winning or losing a fight, and so we're going to be looking at Sangwiches' gameplay in order to give him some pointers on how he could be using Winston's abilities to better use. With Winston, your job is generally to isolate squishy targets and be a disruptor. You generally want to avoid dueling high mobility targets or high damage heroes such as Roadhog or Bastion, and instead go for squishier targets like Soldier 76, Mercy, and Ana. Knowing this, you should be using your abilities to assist you in doing so, using your jump to jump in on isolated targets as well as get out, and using your shield in order to protect yourself as you slowly drain your target's HP. So without further ado, let's jump into some gameplay so that we can identify what he could be doing better with Winston's abilities. So at the beginning of the game, we can see that Sandwich has positioned himself up at the choke, sort of like how Reinhardt would when you are doing these sort of duels at the choke, and you can see that he places his shield down in order to protect his team. Now, it may be tempting to use your shield like this, but you're going to need it for when you dive the enemy team's backline. Without your shield, it makes you a lot more vulnerable to enemy retaliation. Without anything to protect yourself with as you take out your isolated target, you are vulnerable to CC as well as damage incoming from the enemy DPS as well as their tanks. So while in this example, using your shield like this wasn't too bad, you don't want to get into the habit of using it like this, as your shield isn't as effective when using it this way. Using it this way greatly reduces your effectiveness as a disruptor. Obviously, there will be times where you do want to use your shield in order to protect your teammates, but generally, you're going to want to use it for yourself when you're going in on isolated targets so that you can shield yourself from incoming damage. A good example of shield usage comes from another game that Sandwich also played. You can see that when he jumps in on his isolated target, he uses his shield in order to protect himself. Not only that, but he plays around his shield, playing on the outside of it when the enemy is on the inside and playing on the inside when the enemy is on the outside. And what this does is it makes sure that he is staying safe and that his shield is being put to use. Moving on to Winston's jump pack ability, this ability is fairly simple to use. As long as you understand positioning, this should be a breeze. For the most part, you're going to be using Winston's jump pack in order to engage on isolated squishy targets as well as disengage when you're in danger. For the most part, a lot of players don't have too much trouble using this ability, but we'll go into some examples of how Sandwich could have used jump pack a little bit better. So like I said, using this ability isn't too hard to use, it's just a matter of knowing when to use it. When Sandwich jumps in here, he probably didn't realize that the enemy team was right around the corner, and it causes him to die. What he probably should have done is position himself more closer to his team in order to increase his chances of surviving while waiting for his Mercy in order to heal him. That way he wouldn't have died, and he could have had his jump pack for when he wanted to jump in on an isolated target when the enemy team engaged. Also, he could have actually used it to disengage if he was in a bad position. So if the enemy team engaged and he was in a bad position, he could have also disengaged and kept himself safe. Now, another thing to note is that when he gets res, he's actually behind the enemy team, so this spot may not be too bad, and he may have not needed to use jump pack to get out. The only thing is that he doesn't have his shield up, so this could have been a bad position since he wouldn't have been able to protect himself while he was in the enemy team's back line. A good example of using jump pack is in this clip when he uses it to get onto the Mercy. Not only does he use it to get on the Mercy, but he uses it to stick onto the Mercy, being persistent and forcing her to use res early. Part of the reason this is also really good use of jump pack is because he knows where he's going, he knows how to position himself, and he knows what he's going to be getting himself into. And finally, we have Winston's ultimate. Winston's ultimate is pretty interesting as the ability gives him 1000 HP unless he's purple, and it gives him more mobility. This means he could be using his ultimate in order to save himself or put him in a position where he can constantly chase someone and just be overall annoying. Typically, you'll find Winston players using this ability to constantly whack someone in a direction, forcing them out of the fight and just being annoying, or putting someone into a corner, just constantly whacking them as they try to take down an 1000 HP target, which can be pretty difficult. Since the ability can push people away, it can push them off of objectives, as you see Sandwich is trying to do here. Unfortunately, at this time of the game when he gets his ultimate, his team isn't around to support him, so this doesn't end up working out too well. Now again, we have another clip from Sangwich, and this ultimate that he uses in this clip is actually pretty good. He uses the ultimate in order to push Soldier 76 away while he's ulting, and so what this does is it protects his team indirectly, since Soldier 76 won't be able to attack the squishier targets. He'll only be able to attack the 1000 HP Winston, which Winston will be able to easily take out. Now after that, he goes after Mei, and unfortunately she had ice block up, so he wasn't able to take her out. He could have easily gone for a different enemy, but nonetheless this ultimate was still pretty pretty decent. So that's pretty much it for this video, going over the basic uses for Winston's abilities, as well as telling you how this player could have used the abilities a little bit better. So before I end this video, I would just like to say that I'm very appreciative that Sandwich let me use these clips for this video for me to put on my channel, and I would like to quickly say that the first game, that being the King's Row game, was the game that I reviewed initially, and then he sent me this Hollywood game with the changes implemented, and it's very interesting to see how easily this player was able to implement these changes, even though they were fairly simple to go by. It is very clear to see how much of a change that this player has made. Some of the good clips come from the Hollywood clips, which is the game that he sent me after the King's Row game. Something that I said on the King's Row game after he sent it to me is that I didn't think that he quite understood what the character is built to do, and that he was playing more like Zarya or Orisa. There are some examples where he uses the shield sort of like how you'd use Reinhardt's shield or Orisa's shield, standing at the choke, protecting his team. What he didn't understand is that Winston is a disruptor. As Winston, you're a disruptor, not a protector. You can focus on characters that are out of position with your team, but you also can't forget what your job is as Winston. You want to use your bubble to isolate squishy targets and play around your cooldowns. That's not what he was doing in the King's Row game, and the reason why I only show so many clips is because this happens repeatedly, and I would just be repeating myself over and over again. So take my word for it, the clips that you see here of the mistakes that he's making, he just constantly makes those mistakes over and over again, and they're not much different than the previous ones, which is why this video is somewhat short. So I did the video this way because I thought it would be easier to digest, and since the video is shorter and spits out the information quicker, I thought it'd be much more pleasant to watch. I can also do something different or do full VOD reviews, so if you guys want me to change something up, then let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.